live, Facebook Live right here now for our Christ Baptist Church devotions. So welcome. You're with us here tonight for our devotions. We're in the book of Esther, Esther chapter 8, and we're choosing to go Facebook Live here with some different equipment because we've had some technical difficulties this week and some of our computers crashed and some of that. And nevertheless, you can always get a signal, so we can always go live with this. So we are having this live, and then this recording will be on our YouTube channel and our Facebook page, so we'll be able to have you be able to see things on Facebook Live as well. So we're in the book of Esther tonight for this, and we've gone through Esther chapter 1 through 7, which has been a great story, a story that only God could create, where the enemy of Israel, the enemy of the Jews, has been revealed as Haman the Agagite. And we have a lesson here very specifically about why obedience to God is so important, because Haman, the enemy of Israel, is there because Saul was told to kill all of the Amalekites, and specifically Agag, their king. And because he didn't, you find that in 1 Samuel 15, because he didn't, then 500 years later, here comes this man, Haman the Agagite, general to King Xerxes, who is now plotting very specifically to kill all the Jews, not just to advance his position, but to kill the Jews. And you can see how God plans this all out by having Esther and Mordecai are all there and in place, with the deportation gone under Daniel and all that into Babylon. And here's Mordecai and his cousin, Esther, who's an orphan. But because of providence, God's fingerprints, God's plan has on Esther and Mordecai. He takes Esther to become the queen of the Persian kingdom, just through an unusual set of circumstances that caused her to be seen as just an amazing woman, set apart, different from others. And what makes it that so is she's different because she's set apart to God. And that makes her special. And King Xerxes sees that in her. Well, in that, we saw that Haman the Agagite in chapters 2, 3, and 4 saw that in his pride he wanted to be lifted up. But there's no way that God would allow that to happen. And in his finding out that Mordecai was a Jew, then he decided to kill all the Jews. And what we saw in the last two chapters was this amazing turn of events, how God just brought Israel to the brink of disaster, just so close to the edge of the cliff, so that they would have the best seat in the house to watch him deliver them, just to see how he cares for them. And we saw that in chapter 7. It was just the most amazing thing, where in Esther's banquet, Esther's carefully planned statement to the king that said, Haman is our enemy because he wants to kill even me. And the king was like, who would want to kill the queen? So the king goes out to try to find out how he can help save the queen and who's going to help him save the queen. Comes back in, find Haman blubbering all over the queen and her feet. And so he says, will he assault the queen even while I'm in the house? The eunuchs knew what was going on. The eunuchs absolutely knew what was going on. And I like this, what the text says in chapter 7. It says, one of the eunuchs said, they covered Haman's face. As soon as the king said that, they put a bag over his head. And then one of the eunuchs said, oh, by the way, Haman happened to have made a bunch of gallows to hang Mordecai on. Why don't we hang him on those? Only God could have orchestrated some sense of deliverance like that. But chapter 8 is here to tell us God's not done. Just when you think God did his job and he delivered Israel, just when you think he's done his job and delivered you from your circumstances, God's not done. Isn't that what's great? When you think, great, thank you, God, I'll take it from here. He killed Haman, had Haman killed, and now Mordecai's looked after better. Esther's the queen. Oh, God's not done yet. He is not done yet. There is the biggest thing that's going to happen right now. Let's get into it, chapter 8. See, after he delivers, God is now going to do something even more beneficial for Israel. Take a look. Chapter 8, Esther 8. Well, we know what happened. They had that disastrous for Haman, that banquet where Haman was just caught out as one who wanted to destroy the queen and her people, and he was killed. Now, on that day, King Ahasuerus gave the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, to Queen Esther, and Mordecai came before the king, where Esther disclosed what he was to her. So Esther, right after, in that last part of chapter 7, she said, oh, by the way, that Mordecai who saved your life, he's my cousin. That's right, he's my cousin. And so the king, on verse 2, took off his signet ring, which he'd taken away from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai, and Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. So not so much that he would run her children, or Esther or Haman's children, but all that Haman owned, everything that was gone with Haman, is now under Esther. And so Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. So everything Haman owned, get it right, everything Haman owned, Mordecai is now in charge of. Wow, that's a big turn of events. From save the king, okay, he's honored. We rescue the Jews, or we haven't rescued the Jews yet, but we rescue Esther. But now Mordecai gets to be in charge of everything Haman owns. Verse 3, then Esther spoke again to the king, fell at his feet, wept and implored him to avert the evil scheme of Haman the Agagite and his plot which he devised against the Jews. You see, Esther's not done yet. You'd think they'd be done when she exposed Haman and Haman gets his justice, but we still got a problem. And the problem is that order is still out there, signed by the order of the king of the law of the Medes and the Persians, that says all Jews are going to die on the 13th of the last month of the year. Anybody can kill any Jew that they want. Remember, that was the decree. So Esther is still, she is still passionate about saying, you can't let my people die. So verse 3, she fell at the king's feet and implored him. Well, verse 4, the king extended the golden scepter to Esther, so Esther rose and stood before the king. So he said, stand up, you can do that, I'll now listen to you. So she gives her big speech right here, verse 5. Then she said, if it pleases the king, and I have found favor before him, and the matter seems proper to the king, and I am pleasing in his sight, let it be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews who were in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the calamity which will befall my people, and how can I endure to see destruction of my kindred? So she pleads to the king, oh king, if I find favor in your sight, write a law here that just revokes what Haman did. Just take it away. Just erase it. Well, the king can't do that. It's signed by the law of the Medes and the Persians. It's stuck. It's out there. On that day, anyone can kill Jews and take all of their belongings. So verse 7, King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given the house of Haman to Esther, and him they've hanged on the gallows because he stretched out his hand against the Jews. So he said to Mordecai and to Esther, he says, well, I've given everything Haman owned to Esther, and they hanged Haman because he tried to kill you. As if like that's enough. This is like a movie where the movie's not quite over yet, and they find the bad guy, they kill the bad guy, but the bomb that the bad guy planted is still going to go off. Oh no, we gotta defuse the bomb. We gotta undo the bomb. How do we do that? The bad guy's dead. He can't undo it. That's the kind of scenario we have right here in chapter 8. And so Esther makes her appeal to say, can you take away this law? Can you just remove it? Just undo it? The king says, well, I've given everything that Haman owned to you, and I've hanged Haman on the gallows. The king knows he can't do anything, but he has an idea. Verse 8. Now you write to the Jews as you see fit, in the king's name. He actually says, Esther, Mordecai, you guys can actually write this next law. I won't write it. I'll let you do it, since you're the ones in danger. You write to the Jews as you see fit in the king's name, and seal it with a king's signet ring. For a decree which is written in the name of the king and sealed with a king's signet ring may not be revoked. You see, that was the problem with Haman's order. It couldn't be revoked. So the king's scribes were called at that time in the 3rd month, that is, the month Sivan, on the 23rd day. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded to the Jews, the satraps, the governors, and the princes of the provinces, which extended from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces, to every province according to its script, and to every people according to their language, as well as to the Jews according to their script and their language. My gracious, that's a long sentence to say that. I think the author here wants us to understand this is a big deal. And what's important when we look at verse 9, on that particular day, in the 3rd month, remember the danger is coming in the 12th month, so we're 9 months away. And it's such a special day, it was actually recorded there for us. In the 3rd month, on the 23rd day, it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded the Jews. So Mordecai, the one who we see him at the gates, we see him walking around in rags, we see him not getting prominence like Esther got prominence. Mordecai is the one who wrote the order, not the king, Mordecai. So Mordecai commanded to all the Jews, and get this, the satraps, the governors, and the princes of the provinces, which extended from India to Ethiopia. India to Ethiopia. He wrote in every language to go across there, I need to get this out, this decree out. And to every people according to their language, as well as the Jews according to their script and language. And verse 10, he wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed it with the king's signet ring and sent letters by couriers on horses, riding on steeds sired by the royal stud. He wants us to know this is so special. The decree went out from Ethiopia to India in every language. And in particular, they put it on riders that were on the fastest horses that the king had. So they were of the king's personal horses and sent them out. The king had Mordecai write it. God couldn't have scripted this any better. In them, the king granted the Jews who were in each and every city the right to assemble and to defend their lives, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate the entire army of any people or province which might attack them, including children and women, and to plunder their spoil. This is what Mordecai wrote. He can't undo what the king said, but what he said is the Jews not only have a right to defend themselves, they have a right to kill anybody who crosses their line. They have a right to assemble and to defend their lives, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate the entire army. The Jews now have the right. And the king, it's funny that the first order went out by order of Haman, and everybody knew it. This order is going out by the king. Whose side do you think the king is on? Especially now that everybody knows that Esther's a Jew. Everybody knows that Esther, the queen, whom the king loves, is a Jew. And they know December 13th, well, it's not December, but it's their date for their 12th month comes on the 13th, in the last month of the year, that everybody can attack the Jews according to Haman's order. But the Jews now, according to the king, have a right to assemble and defend and attack and kill and take the stuff of anybody who threatens them. He said they can do this, verse 12, on one day, in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, the 13th day of the 12th month, that is the month Adar. So the month Adar, not December, the month Adar is the month that Haman determined that the Jews could be killed on the 13th of that month. The king says on that very day, the Jews can assemble and defend themselves and kill and take all the plunder of everybody else. And everybody knows whose side the king is on. So verse 13, a copy of the edict to be issued as law in each and every province was published to all the peoples, so that the Jews would be ready for this day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So a copy was put and made as law in every province, so the Jews would be ready. The couriers hastened and impelled by the king's command, went out riding on royal steeds, and the decree was given out in the citadel in Susa. So it was put everywhere from India to Ethiopia. Then Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal robes of blue and white. Interesting, he was in sackcloth and ashes just a couple of days before. Sackcloth and ashes at the king's gate the day before. Now he's from the presence of the king in royal robes of blue and white, with a large crown of gold and a garment of fine linen purple. In the city of Susa, shouted and rejoiced. You see, God's not done yet. Yeah, we killed Haman. I get it. Yeah, okay. So now, Esther, you get all of Haman's properties and you gave it to Mordecai. That's good. I get it. That's great. God's like, oh, we haven't even begun yet. You see, this is the goodness of God. We see the providence of God. We see his sovereignty of God. We see how God works for his people and how he's helping deliver them, get them out of difficult messes and all of that. But God here in verses 14 and 15, he's saying, oh, we're not done yet. Look at Mordecai. Robes of blue and white, large crown of gold, and the whole city's rejoicing because Mordecai's there. What a turn of events. They could kill every Jew, and now it's shifted. But we're not done yet. For the Jews, verse 16, there was light and gladness and joy and honor. The Jews are saying, what just happened? This is amazing. I mean, they're having festivals. They're at each other's houses every night. It's just amazing. They're saying, this can't be true. And then verse 17, in each and every province and in each and every city, wherever the king's commandment and his decree arrived, there was gladness and joy for the Jews, a feast and a holiday. So the Jews are really happy. A turn of events. The Jews cannot defend themselves, and they know the king is on their side. Mordecai is lifted up to have these robes and a crown and all of that. Wow, it seems going. And God says, oh, I'm not done yet. Because the question that one might be asking is, well, what about all the people who aren't Jews? What are they now feeling? The people who aren't Jews, oh my. They were able to go kill Jews and take all their belongings. It was good for them under Haman, but now they're no longer protected, and the Jews can defend themselves and actually come out and hurt them. Now what do I do? Oh no, do we gain forces? No. What do the Gentiles do? Let me show you what God said at the end of verse 17. And many among the peoples of the land became Jews, for the dread of the Jews had fallen on them. God turned it so that, Haman, you want to kill all the Jews. He waits till the last second, and he uses Haman's own words against him so that God doesn't bring Haman down. Haman brings Haman down. It's Haman's words to the king that kill him, not God's intervention. God didn't use his supernatural power to defeat Haman. He used providence to cause Haman to act like his shoelaces were tied together, and he tripped, and he fell on the queen. And the king comes in and says, will you assault the queen? And the eunuchs had all been knowing all along, we don't like this guy. As evil's going forward, truth is waiting, truth is waiting, truth is waiting. And all the eunuchs are waiting, watching, we know this guy. And then as soon as he trips on his laces, it's done. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the dread of the Jews had fallen on them. And so, everybody became Jews at that point. Well, not everybody, but many of the peoples of the land. So what did God do? He said, it's not only just that I deliver you. It's not just that I have Haman be judge. It's not just that you get his property. It's not even that Mordecai gets raised up. But not only are people not going to kill you, now all the people of the land want to become like you. They actually want to be you. Totally. They want to know who you are. They want to know about your God. They're drawn to you. Yes, it's the fear of the Lord that does it, but they want to do that. So what did God do? He took it from where they wanted to kill him to where now they want to become Jews. Isn't that amazing, God's providence? But isn't that what God did with us in Jesus Christ? We were enemies of God. For while we were yet enemies of God, Christ died for us. And then we become children of God and become in the family of God. He did that for us. Not just to pay for our sins, not just to redeem us from that, not just to get us out of trouble, but to bring us all the way from where we were as enemies, all the way where we were deserving of judgment. We have his judgment coming to us, all the way to where now we are in his family and having his blessing. That's what God did for us in Christ. That's what God did for Esther and her people and Mordecai there in the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. God works for his people, even when he can't be seen among his people. That's what we know about Esther. And so we see that now in Esther chapter 8. Tomorrow we'll take a look at chapters 9 and 10. So we'll see you then.